is for the way you look at me.
It's for the only one
you see. V is very, very extraordinary. E is even more than. Hi everyone. Welcome. In case some of you was not aware, we were spelling the word love.
Indeed.
And the reason why we were spelling the word love is because it's our Valentine's Day special. To all those who believe in love, who like love, who are into love, who know love, who want to know love, who are yet to know love, we are here with a special episode of the Receipts podcast, the Love Edition.
Indeed.
Welcome to episode 239. Yes. There is nothing about a 39 that is love, is it? No. Well, it's a Love Edition. So welcome. And for those of you who are kind of not into Valentine's Day, hey, at least you're into love.
Well, I feel like we've got something for everybody on this episode.
Whether
you're into it, whether you're not, you're going to learn a lot today.
You shall. Absolutely. You shall. Now let's get to introducing.
Indeed.
Hi everyone, it's your girl Tolly T.
Just call me Audrey.
And we have a special guest in the building. Now, one thing about us guys is we're going to bring an expert in.
That's right.
As much as we might like to chat and we might see ourselves expert-ish.
Mm-hmm. I'm an anecdotal expert.
Okay.
So I have expertise based on my own experiences.
I think that's absolutely fair. I think that makes you enough of an expert.
I've
lived a life.
And I've lived a very colourful life.
Exactly.
So, yeah. But anyway.
But we've got an expert.
An actual one.
We have the amazing Michelle Elman in the house. Whoop, who is a life coach and is here to talk to us about relationships, life. And you've written so many books. So we are here with people who have researched life, researched boundaries, researched love, researched dating. And we are here to get some tips and also give you guys some, some well-informed information.
Indeed.
To see you through the love season.
Exactly. I feel like this is a great partnership because we talk so much about love and relationships and we have our other show, Your Receipts, where people send in their dilemmas and what would you say, 95% of it is relationship-based?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Easily 95% of it is relationship-based.
Definitely.
But same with me, it's the most asked question is like around dating. Even when I was talking about body image, it would be about dating. When I was talking about boundaries, it would be about dating. So I was like, you know what? Let's just talk about dating.
Yeah,
I say it all the time. People are like sex sales, love sales.
Yeah.
Dating sales. Like people want to know about love. That's why so much content about
people
it.
just want to be loved
as
well.
They do. Yeah, they do. Not to start. Okay, Michelle, forgive me here.
I know what you're going to say though.
Yeah, we kind of like a bit drama small.
A small tad. Just like, a tad.
Just a bit of drama. And also like...
There's no way to segue into it.
There is no way to segue into it. And also you've lived and learned from it.
I've lived it
and
learned from it.
I don't know if it's a record set, but it's a record set in this room that Michelle was engaged for 24 hours.
Yes.
Now...
I think it was technically 22 even.
Technically 22 hours. So please talk us through this story.
I can laugh about it now because enough time has passed.
How many years ago was it?
8 months ago.
Oh, it's not...
it's still quite recent.
I couldn't laugh about it 2 months ago. 2025, new year, new me. Like, I haven't come up to my 1 year anniversary of me getting engaged.
It just happened.
Yeah, I love how you were like, how many years ago?
No, I thought it was years. So I was like, okay, cool. Let me take my smiling back. 8 months is no joke.
Yeah.
It's fresh.
I'm probably still in the process, but I am way better than I was. Like,
okay.
I think my worst of it was like maybe 4 months ago. Like October really hit hard.
Okay.
And it happened in April last year. I kept my relationship private. I have a public profile. I believe the only way to have a healthy relationship is to be private about your relationship. Never shared my boyfriend, never shared his name, never shared his job, anything about him. You maybe saw his hand in a photo or the back of his head, but that was it. So the first time I shared a picture of him online was my engagement photo, and the caption was the joke of like, I told you never meet my boyfriend, meet my fiance.
Great caption.
That's a great caption though.
Well, about an hour later, I got a message from
my heart is beating.
a follower, reader of all my books, has read all my books. And if you scrolled up on the messages, was actually a message saying, thank you. I do a Q&A every Monday on my Instagram. And she had asked me a question about being inexperienced in dating. And I had replied publicly. And then
you've helped
she
her.
had replied privately saying like, thank you so much. I'm always so worried about going on dates because I haven't had a lot of experience. And I'm like, you've got this. And she was like, your books helped me so much. I give them to all my friends. All my friends know you by first name basis because like I refer to you so much. And then I get this DM on the day of my engagement saying, hey, is your fiance, with his full name? And that's all it says. And we've told all of our friends and family. It was only the day before. My parents live in Hong Kong, so we literally only just told my parents. And we were on the phone to his brother when I see this DM, and I was like, oh, who's this person? And he's like, oh, I'm on the phone to my brother. Can we speak about this later? I was like, yeah, absolutely. We're in the middle of watching Grey's Anatomy. Like, we go back to watching Grey's Anatomy. I've completely forgotten about this DM. And then I'm just like, wait, who was that person? And I so easily, you guys know, how many DMs do you get? Like,
yeah,
so
exactly.
easily.
Yeah, so fair. Yeah.
And also, it wasn't like it said anything. Like,
it just said, is this his name?
Yeah, and I'd had messages like that before where like people figured out from like his dog and his cat, me sharing his dog and his cat, who he was. And it's not like he has a public profile or anything. Anyway, she was one of 3. He eventually admitted to that. Originally went down the line of, why would you say yes to marrying me yesterday if you would believe a stranger on the internet over me?
But okay, cool. So can we roll it back? So you're like, who is this girl? Did
Yeah.
you reply to her?
No.
Okay.
Because I was like, oh, I thought colleague. Because I genuinely thought I was in the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. My friends and family loved him. It was not a case of like me getting engaged to a dickhead. It wasn't. It was like we joked that like my parents loved him more than me. Like my friends adored him. The only person who didn't like him said, I just feel like you went for the safe guy. Like you went for the guy who didn't have like a lot of pizzazz. But at least you know he won't cheat on you.
And that's a good critique. Oh my God, because that's like it's a safe one. He's not going to do anything bad. Like he's fine.
Yeah, she just thought he was a bit boring. Like basic white guy is what,
like
the idea was.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I've had enough drama and chaos in my life. Like I'm good
feel
with
safe.
safe.
Yeah,
I'm good with boring.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't think he was boring. Obviously, I didn't think he was boring. Otherwise, I wouldn't be with him.
Of course.
And I get that like charismatic to 2 different people is different. But it was after I think an hour, we were still going back and forth. We were like, I was like, no, like, why are you being weird about this? And like, he was like, I don't know, I've dated loads of people. I was like, who said anything about dating? Like, as I said in my head, I thought colleague. And I was like, no, you haven't. And he was like, I don't know, why are you asking all these questions? I was like, no, why are you being weird about it? And as we're doing this, she sends the dating profile. On the date and the screenshot of the contact card, the first thing I noticed is it's not his number. So I was like, oh, weird. But then the next thing I noticed is on the profile, it said Milan. And he had recently gone to Milan. And I was like, that's strange. And then I saw his age, and his age was 29, and I was with him for his 28th birthday and his 30th birthday. So I was like, and his profile was because I think the first thing was his profile was exactly the same as the profile I'd swiped on 3 years before, that I thought it might be an old profile. But once I saw those, there was actually, people are like, maybe it was just someone trying to ruin your relationship and all. And I was like,
yeah, I was going to ask
there was no, like,
but there'll be no reason. Like, why would you try to ruin my relationship?
There's no reason. One.
I'm
Number 2, it's not the kind of followers I have. I have a page about personal development. People follow me because they want to be the best version of themselves. They're not, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not I'm a public figure in the fact that I have a public Instagram account, but no one's cared about my personal life to the point where like I've had a private boyfriend for 3 years and I get DMs being like, hey, I saw you on Oxford Street, but I didn't come up to you because like, that's what my following is like. Like they've never tried to dig and find out who he is in 3 years or any of these things. So like, there was no part of me that wouldn't believe it.
I'll be honest, more often than not, I'll believe the girl.
Yeah.
I believe the girl.
Yeah,
She's not lying.
That happened to me. And I was just like, and I remember when I found out, and my friend was like, but how do you know it's not some person that's just scheming and lying? I was like, no.
It's not,
No, I'm sorry. I don't have haters like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Haters like that.
Yeah.
I also
that
don't
would go out of their
have
way.
And
also
mentality existing in my world.
Neither
frankly.
of you, like, correct me if I'm wrong, were like smug about your relationship.
Yeah.
You weren't like, oh, look, my man's perfect. You
Where
didn't even
people wanna
post
tear
your
you
guy.
down. Yeah,
So people,
yeah.
like, people are more likely to want to tear that down.
Yeah.
So you get haters, quote unquote, if you're really smug.
Yeah.
You're like, my man is perfect. Maybe then, but that's not the case here.
Yeah.
And I think, so I remember, it's all a bit blurry, but I ended up leaving to another room, calling my life coach, which is a very strange thing.
Your favorite life coach has a life coach, by the way.
I preach life coaching. Like, I'm a life coach who has a life coach, and I called my life coach in the heat of the moment. And it was a Sunday, and she picked up, like, and she just said to him, because she knew him as well.
Yeah.
She said to him on the phone, like, look, at the end of the day, there's more evidence against you than there is evidence for you. And I, in that moment, don't know how I came up with it, was she had sent more messages, including like, because I was like, wait, was it in Milan? And she said, no, it was the day he came back from Milan. And she said a hotel name. And like in the moment, I just went, put that hotel name in your email. And the booking came up straight away. It was the exact same date she said. But it was, now in hindsight, it's the only way I could have confirmed it because he deleted all texts. It was on his work number, which is why I didn't recognize the number. And yeah, then he admitted to it right after my life coach said that. And then he admitted to another one. And then that evening, he admitted to a third.
Okay, there was no need for that kind of confession.
Exactly, I was going to say, was that involuntary?
I literally, the first thing I said is like, tell me the whole truth right now, otherwise there's no road back.
Yeah.
I think I already knew there was no road back.
Yeah.
Like once, there are so many ways to decipher whether you're going to stay or leave. I think for me, if it was a drunken mistake once, maybe, but lying is bigger than cheating for me.
Okay.
Multiple times is a big thing. The fact that this has been ongoing for 6 months and like you've been lying to me every day for 6 months, it was a dating app. So like the first time I went on a date after being single, I thought about every single step I took. Like as I was walking to the date, I was like, I could turn back right now. As I was sitting on the tube, I was like, I could turn back right now. All of those micro decisions you make to turn up
That is my biggest thing about cheating.
Didn't
Oh my
stop.
God, I'm so happy you said it in that way because I've never been able to figure out the right way to do it. There are many times before it happened that you could have said, actually,
no.
You didn't
let me
slip,
not do
trip
this.
and land on it.
Like it was
you know?
never such an easy, oh my God, I wish it just happened. It never just happens.
You
But
tapped your
also,
wrist.
I-
there.
after.
I spoke to that woman on the phone for an hour. She told me everything. She sent me every single message between them, which was 100%. Like, if there wasn't a nail in the coffin, that was the nail in the coffin. But also, she was like, you know, that whole time he kept going into the bathroom, and she was like, are you okay? And I do think he was having doubts of whether to do it or not. But realistically, that was already the second time he was cheating on me. So what difference does it make at that point?
So was he like dating this girl? Was it a one night stand?
One night stand, dating apps, when he was on business trips. It was all on his work phone. He deleted it all on his work phone. His work phone is encrypted anyway because of his job. I never had his passcodes for anything anyway. Like, I'm not that kind of person.
Yeah.
And also I think he always had my passcode. That's the funny thing. I just never really, I don't know. I don't have really a jealous bone in my body. Like, and it's, all my friends joke it's to an abnormal level. Like I can see someone who I'm dating flirt with someone across the room and I'm like, you're coming home with me. What
Get your
if I have to
pics.
if I have to compete with a girl in a club, like good luck to you. Like you have her, I'm going home. Like I'm just not going to have, I'm not chasing anyone. I'm like, I'm too old for this. Like, so that's where I guess I never really asked for his number or like was looking through his phone but at the same time, I don't think you should have to.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a lot of ag.
In the same way that like I shouldn't have to share a photo to 500,000 people to know he's not cheating.
Yeah.
I feel like it's such a shame because when you do have a private relationship, because I wanted to go back to you saying that because I'm always changing my mind about how much you display. And I don't know if it's like different when you are public facing or when you're a public figure or whatever, when you have a lot of followers. Like, do you think that the average everyday person who's got maybe 300 followers on their Instagram should still keep their partner private?
No, but I do think there is. So I think there's a balance with everything. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do in the future, if I'm being really honest, because I've had all the jokes made of like, wouldn't you share your partner sooner now?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm also a little bit traumatized. Like it was whiplash and like the space of it, like, I have no clue what I'm going to do in the future. But like with a 300, with just your close friends and family, like, post all you want. At the same time, I do think you should question if you're posting so much, are you doing the like outward presentation of your relationship to kind of hide what's going on behind the scene? Because actually, I have a private account too. I don't anymore because I deleted it because all the pictures of him were there. But when I had a private account, I was very conscious of like, if we'd got into a fight the night before, I'm not then going to put out a post being like, I'm in the healthiest episode. Like, I just think you're not helping yourself in that situation. It's not even about everyone else. It's the fact that like you will feel a level of inauthenticity to have like the public perception of your relationship versus what's actually going on in the inside.
I think even outside of Instagram, because I'm not that kind of person. So do you know if sometimes you go out and you see a couple and they'll be like, oh, we just had a fight on our way here, but they've walked in hand and kissing. It could get the fuck away from me. I'm not the kind of person that can pretend. Like if we've had an argument, I'm not going.
Everyone's gonna know.
I'm actually very much like, either you're not going, depending whose family it is, or I'm not going. If I'm going, you go, I'll meet you there. Because I don't know how to pretend. So I've always found it weird that people can pretend so well about their relationships.
So I can't pretend either, but being in a 3-year relationship, I learned how to go, we're putting this on pause. Now we're going to go present. We had a big thing about being a united front. So we never wanted his family or my family to ever be involved in our fights. So if we are going for, like, I also don't want your friends getting involved. I don't want opinions about me. If we have an issue, we'll sort it between us, no one else. So if we are going for lunch, I don't want like snips or passive aggression or like a comment about how we had a fight last night, because that will lead to other people having access to their opinions. So we always did united front. Doesn't matter how bad we walk into the room. In that room, we're putting it on pause. We're being ourselves. We're coming out and we'll address it
I
later.
don't have to do that. But I don't have to do that with anyone. Like I do, if I'm not, everybody, it's really apparent. I do not know how to do it. My face reads it. I'm just kind of like, I'd rather not go.
The thing is, it does come across on my face.
I can see it. I can see myself. Yeah, like my face is screwed up.
So sometimes I will have to say, like, yeah, there are a few things going on, but don't worry, I'm sorting it later.
Yeah.
Like, I won't even be specific about it being the relationship. I'll just be like, yeah, there are a few things going
Especially
on.
if it was a big fight. If it was a little petty little thing, whatever. But if we had a big fight before this, I don't know how to then go and pretend. But I was going to ask you, so like, I think there is the thing of, I'm sure you've heard all the jokes, like, oh, you're a life coach, you're a dating coach, like you've done all of this, you've read all the books, you wrote books about boundaries and relationships and blah, 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 blah. Like, do you think you can always know?
No, I'm not a psychic and I'm not a mind reader. I am a life coach. I am able to detect warning signs or changes in behavior or body language, and also actually language. I would say my strongest skill as a life coach is actually people's language. Okay. Like the way people say things, like the way they phrase a sentence actually gives away quite a lot. And I couldn't tell because he was lying to himself. So his body language was completely what in life coaching you call congruent, where it's like head, heart, gut, check. Like he was lying to himself, so you don't pick up on it. And I think ultimately I trusted him, and the trust wasn't based off like blind trust. It was based off 3 years of him being there through like my dad getting ill, me getting ill. I had the worst health that I'd ever had in like 2 years. Us trying for a baby. Like there were so many things that he had built up my trust over 3 years, slowly earned it. Like Brene Brown talks about like how trust is built in like a marble jar. You put one marble in the jar, you put one marble in the jar. That yeah, fine. There might have been moments in the last 6 months where like he was acting a bit off. But in that context, 1, we were trying for a baby. 2, I knew there was the ring was like a financial strain of some sort. I knew that like there were really big changes. We were looking to move abroad. He also had a cancer scare in January. So God. anything that I was like,
how are you going through all of this and you found time to cheat? What the fuck is wrong with you?
So I'm literally taking notes. I don't want to forget.
Like, what is actually wrong with you?
But that's where like, yes, did I notice like he was really stressed all the time? Absolutely. I said to him, hey, look, like it might help to talk to me about it. I was like, there was one night where he left bed at like 11 o'clock and went to the living room, and I followed him and was like, hey, what's up? And he was like, I was like, can I just check, is this about our relationship or me? Because if so, like I'd rather talk to you about it. And he was like, it's not about you, it's just he was changing jobs. Like honestly, there couldn't have been one more thing going on in our lives.
Of course.
And I was like, okay, if you want to talk about it, I'm here. I'm going to head to bed. I have this morning in the morning. Like I was going on TV in the morning, and I was like, I really need my sleep. But like, let's talk about it tomorrow. Like we had dinner the next day, and he was like, it's fine. It's just like so many changes, and like, it's kind of a shock to the system of like everything's happening all at once. And I was like, yeah, I think it's kind of how life is. Like,
not to give him any grace. Now, I'm going to say something very stupid. Do you think at any point it was, because I can imagine a man being like, so much was going on, he just kind of did that as a respite, just to kind of like do something bad
times.
Before, no.
With three different people.
Not three times. And also, if it was like a slip up in a club drunk, fine. There's something quite conscious about being on dating apps. And also you have to remember,
you made the profile.
Too many steps.
You made the profile.
Exactly.
So there were 3. 2 were on business trips. This one who messaged me the messages, like the timing of the messages, this is what was so unforgivable. Like the day we went ring shopping, we went for lunch with my godmother, we went ring shopping, and then he matched with her that evening and spent the whole evening messaging her while I was out with a friend. While I was at the NTAs, he was cheating on me.
Do you know that's such a big thing for me? When partners are cheated or whatever, I always thought, where was I in that day? I always do the maths. I was like, where was I? Yeah. Was I with you? Was I? Where was I? What was I doing?
But also, like, the first thing he said to like justify it is, I never felt good enough for you.
Oh my God, that was on my list.
I know.
That was literally the next thing I was going to ask you.
Fuck off.
When you confronted him, what was his excuse? Because oftentimes they say, I just wanted to make sure that I've still got it. I wasn't feeling good enough. I just wanted to see if I still, because I don't know if that is a universal cloak of armor that they all say. I don't know if they all sat in a meeting one day and came to an agreement that this is what we're going to say. This is the universal answer.
Who coined it?
Exactly. Who coined it? Or is there some truth to it? Because they all say it.
So I think if I was being honest with myself and like everyone's like, what are the red flags? And I hate going down that road of questioning because I think it's so victim blaming and like it's on me to figure out the red flags as opposed to it's on you to behave better.
Yeah,
Absolutely not. But the one thing I knew about him is he had insecurities. But the reason why I'm so forgiving of that in a relationship is because I used to have insecurities. I have surgery scars. I've had 15 surgeries. I have surgery scars all over my stomach. I grew up very insecure about that. I'm plus size. I grew up insecure about that. I understand bodily insecurity. And so when someone's insecure, I'm like, I get it. Like I was there too. I hope, like not by loving you, but I hope by being around someone, like I can show you another road. We live in a world of diet culture. Like the main 90% of people hate their body.
Yeah.
So like, yes, I knew he was insecure. Yes, I knew that there were times where like, I guess my career was growing. Like that's ultimately, so when he said like, I never felt good enough for you, my career was getting bigger and bigger. I went into it like largely an author and an influencer, came out and I was on a TV show and I like my career had grown.
You could talk yourself up here, by the way.
What?
You could talk yourself up here. We love to.
But also, I'm not apologetic. But
no, please do not. You was on ITV, you was at this one, you was an expert, you was doing a lot.
But I was on my 5th, but all of these things, I just find it funny that he cheated me on the night I was at the NTAs. Like that was my...
Yeah, that's not a coincidence.
That's not a coincidence, but also that, like he knew how big a deal that was for me. Like I wanted that invite for years and to be invited, I was like, honestly, like, and to this day, like, the NTAs is my favourite night.
The NTAs and National Television Awards.
Yeah. National Television Awards. And like,
never been invited.
Would love to come along.
Would love to come along.
It's such a fun night. Like,
would love to experience
forget all the like red carpet and everything. Like the night is so fun. Like the night out is so fun. And like every year it's my favourite night. And it's just the fact that I was like on a red carpet feeling my best at my happiest. And that's what was going on. Like, it was all around the fact that he was ultimately intimidated. And like a lot of men I go on dates with even now, like first date, they'll say the word intimidated. I had like 2 guys say it like in the last month.
That's
like,
an ick. Sorry.
And I think rather than
that's
just
what?
being
That's
like...
an ick.
We said that's Nick.
No.
But I think rather than just being open about that and being like, I'm feeling intimidated, your career's like, you're growing to a level. And like, obviously... I think he was never comfortable with the public part of it. Like he was just so... One of the things he said as well was like, I was lying to you from the beginning, which is where like... So when you are trying to tell if someone lies, what you do is you ask them a question that's absolutely fact. Like, are you a co-host of The Receipts?
Yes.
I will now see
that's like what
your
the lie
body
detector
language
person
as
said.
you do that. So now if I ask you, like, have you ever cheated on me? I can see whether you're like answering with the same body language.
Wait, do it. Ask me legit questions. Let's see if we can figure out if I'm lying.
No,
please. I don't mind. I don't mind.
Same
No,
person.
I'm not doing that. Why? Because
also, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah. But let me just finish the story.
Yeah.
So when he said I was lying to you from the beginning, I said, what are you talking about? And he was like, for example, if I went to work and I really messed up, I would come home and tell you I'd had an amazing day. How the hell would I have figured that out? Like,
but what? Because what's the point of that
But that's
lie?
a silly lie.
What's the point of the relationship?
Yeah,
Point of that lie?
yeah.
That doesn't do anything.
But also,
I'm not your manager.
This is why when people say like, what are the red flags? I was like, in what world would I have sat there and interrogated him and be like, did you really have a good day?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, madness. But also, why did he not tell me the truth when he came home? Because he was like, I didn't want you to, like, you had this image of me of like this great guy. Like,
But you created the image.
Well, you not only created the image, but like in many ways, it was based on your behavior, and your behavior was what I saw. Like you turning up for me, you showing up. I mean, on the 4th date, he'd shown up for me after a funeral. Like it was big stuff that had earned his trust. Yeah. Like that does make you a good guy. You just didn't believe you were a good guy. And so you self-sabotaged. And then look, this is the funny thing about insecurity. When you don't believe the compliments people are giving you, it's almost like you go out there to prove that you are this, like he's got this weird idea of how an awful a person he is. Then you became that person because you behaved in line with it. But up to that point where you were the man who showed up for me at every instance, anytime anyone would say comments, I remember someone at a like family event had said like, God, Michelle's so difficult to be with. How do you put up with her? And like the way he went to bat for me in that room, like, God, I respected him. I admired him. The way he stood up for me, I was like, God, I adore you. Like, all of that was what made me fall in love with you. Fuck your career. Fuck whatever else. I didn't care for that shit. Like, I had my career and I was secure in my career. And like, but he wasn't secure in his. And he felt that was what the competition was. And I was like, I wasn't competing with you. I was on the same team with you. Like, and the funny thing around like, well, I thought you were going to end it with me was like, I literally said yes to
your proposal.
Yeah. And I was just, it was.
Do you think that's something that's always going to show up in, speaking on straight relationships at the moment, if a woman is more dating down, for lack of a better phrase? Is that dynamic, or is there anything that we can do, or are we too far gone?
I would stay away from any insecure men now, because what I've realised.
Or does insecure always go hand in hand with not being at a certain point in their career or not being financially stable? Does that always go hand in hand?
I think insecure is a broad statement. It's about being confident in who you are and accepting of who you are, wherever that standpoint is, whether it's a high career, low career, whatever. The reason why I say insecurity is now a warning sign for me, and like when I use warning sign, when I use red flag, it's in a very different way that TikTok uses it, for example. So red flag is not the same as a deal breaker. And this is the part that people don't understand.
Okay, what the difference is.
So red flag in the sea, for example, if you see a red flag, it's potential of danger. It's notice it, be aware. Like it is also don't get in the water, but also this is where people are now flipping red flag to mean spot a red flag and run for the hills. No, that's a deal breaker. If a man raises his voice at me, that's a deal breaker. I'm gone. Like genuinely, I really don't like people raising their voice. Same. I might give you one boundary set, one warning, but you really get one chance at that. If someone does something a little bit weird, I remember like I once went on a first date and the guy called his sister a bitch. And I went, ooh.
Red flag.
Red flag.
Noted.
Noted.
Yeah.
That's literally the word I use. Noted. Of like, ooh, okay. Now I go, are you a misogynist?
What did she do?
Why
was she a bitch?
Because I can't lie, sometimes my sister's a bitch.
Well, this is the thing. Right. So I'm going.
For a fact, my brother's called me a bitch.
So this is the thing. I sat there going, my brother has definitely called me a bitch at some point.
A dumb one at that, a dumb bitch.
But then you've noticed it. So that's the point. That's the point of red flags, is you go like, okay, are you a misogynist? Do you speak about women like this? Do you just have a difficult relationship with your sister?
Okay.
Yeah.
And is this just the colloquialism or the language you use around family that isn't acceptable, but is also within my family of like, my brother's called me a bitch. Like he shouldn't have, but like, so like, that's what I mean by red flag. And so you do notice it. Whereas like, I think this idea of like deal breaker. So when I say insecurity is a red flag, the reason why I notice it a lot more in men than women, and the reason why I've changed my mindset around being very forgiving around insecurity, is because men respond to insecurity very differently as a generalization to women. The women I know who are insecure largely are hateful to themselves inside their own head. It's an internal process. When men are insecure, they will go out to seek a difference.
Yes.
And this is why going on a first date where you are a hotshot and you're able to be like, I mean, he was a guy who wowed you. Like, I remember how he met all my friends was in a house party. I just threw him in the deep end. It was like, meet all of them at the same time. And every single person that night came over to me. It was like, God, what a guy. Like, this is the guy for you, blah, blah. He was good at wowing people. He was great on a first date. I've even spoken to that woman and she was like, I was like, God, this man is like such a gentleman. That was the word always used around him, gentleman. Like, couldn't walk past a woman. I remember I used to be insecure about how, and I said this to him, this is the difference. I have insecurities. Every human does. I vocalize my insecurities. And I said to him, I sometimes get insecure about what a good person you are. And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, for example, there was a day where he never walked past a person struggling on the tube with a bag. And he would help everyone, like whether it's a buggy or a suitcase or whatever. And this woman he'd helped didn't say thank you. And it really got under my skin. And I was like, she didn't even say thank you. Like, and he was like, doesn't matter. She was busy. Like, she had her hands full. Who cares? And I was like, oh, I would have needed a thank you.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't leave my brain. And that night I was like, oh, I'm really insecure about that. Because like, I am a good person and I do nice things, but I really struggle.
I'll be quiet,
Yeah, I need my praise. I need my
I need my praise.
But
Yeah,
I was
always,
like,
thank you
I
very
really
much.
struggle when people don't say
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
And it
yeah.
made me question myself of like, oh, is that actually me being a good person if I need a thank you? Whereas he doesn't need a thank you. When I was insecure about that, I vocalized
Also,
that.
sometimes I think things that are performative, maybe not for this guy in particular, but there have been many.
Oh no, it was performative.
So obviously I don't know this guy, but there were many instances of people being like, their partner is extremely nice on the outside. Like they do everything for the outside world. So the outside world will look at you, be like, oh my God, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, your boyfriend is perfect. He's so nice. But you know how he treats you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, I don't know if he is.
Yeah.
So you know the friend I mentioned who said he was the safe guy. When I broke up, she said, actually, I changed my mind about him at your 30th birthday. And my 30th birthday, I kept completely offline. It wasn't a performative thing on Instagram. But what I now realize in hindsight was like, he had hired a chef. We had rented out a house. Like, it was a massive thing. And like everyone that weekend was like, God, the way he like adores you, the way like, and she had said to me that weekend, like, I think I was wrong about him. He has a lot more character and personality than I thought he did. I just didn't give him enough of a chance. And so I think that there is an element of that, like, but it would be very clear to see if it was all performative when people were around and then it was like awful, being treated badly behind closed doors. Like, in no world, that's the part where I'm a life coach. Like, in no world would I have stayed in that relationship. Where I'm also a life coach is I am trained and qualified in detecting whether someone is willing to change. There is a thing within life coaching where if you have a client where you are working harder for them to do the work than they are doing it for themselves, then you actually have to be like, hey, I'm not sure I'm the right life coach for you. It could be that another life coach is capable of doing that. I'm personally not. I think it's time we part ways. If
my life coach or therapist parted ways with me, I would lose my mind.
Do you know, my therapist said to me the other day, she basically wanted to check in in our check-in because she was like, you've been coming here a really long time and I feel like, am I doing my job properly? And I was like, yes, I just like to talk.
talking to you.
I just like to vent. Trust me.
Just like our relationship. Shit, I can't pay for it, but I like it.
Exactly.
But I think I've never got to that point.
Yeah.
But like, I see people going to therapy. There are a number of people who I've encountered or met who I see going to therapy doing none of the work, is basically what I mean. So when it comes to like him knowing whether he was going to change, like I knew in an instant he wasn't going to change because we were already in life coaching together. So I really like the model within religion of like you go to a pastor or priest before you get engaged to like check all the things. I'm not religious. So we were doing it with my life coach. We were having conversations of like, beliefs around kids, beliefs around prenups, beliefs around all of these things. He had the space, he had the room, he had the resources to ask for help if he needed it. He didn't take it. And also he couldn't have been with a more open, non-judgmental person to be honest with me. But then like, there was also, I've actually not shared this, but like there was also a thing that he said very early on in the relationship. Again, I went red flag. We were talking about Hillary Clinton, and I was saying like I thought she would have been really good through the pandemic. Like, and he went, yeah, but no one respects a woman who stays. And and my face went like that too.
Audacity.
That tells me that if anything, I have to leave you.
No, but this is like 5 dates in, right? So he says that, and my jaw goes like, because I also think that's a really sexist statement.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. And he was like, no, I'm not saying I believe that. I'm saying America believes that. And I was like,
bullshit, they don't.
Well,
You believe that?
Well, so that's where I was like, red flag. Let's now see if he says anything else sexist.
Yeah.
And he didn't. Now, did he take that moment, saw my reaction, and learned to never say it? Maybe. And now in hindsight, I think maybe that. But like, I noted it. Like, it wasn't, I never forgot it either. Like, 3 years later, this was coming back in my head. It was like, nobody respects a woman who stays. So it's like, you don't respect a woman who stays. I'm not. But
I feel like a lot of men don't. And it's not maybe the right word is not respect, but I think they're like, okay, you're going to stay.
But
they
also,
know,
they don't fear.
They know.
They
know
fear a woman who stays.
Yeah.
I said to him, the moment it happened, I was like, you know me better than anyone in this world. And to this day, I actually think that's still true. Like, in what world did you think I would ever stay? My self-esteem, my confidence, my respect for myself. In what world would, like, even to this day, if it was just one drunken thing in a club, I still don't know whether
Did he beg you to stay?
I mean, he still is. Like, if he wasn't, like, the last text to him was literally like, if you text me one more time, I will block you. But like the last time I spoke to him properly was, we did 6 months of no contact. The last time I spoke to him properly, because I still had a few things that I was unsure about, and like, not around getting back together, but like questions of like, he left 10 miles. I mean, this is awful. He left 10 minutes after I found out. Like, he had to catch a business trip the next day.
You're not going.
So
no, you're gonna have that one. You're gonna have to. You're
not going.
We have to talk.
Oh, I'm coming with you.
I will lose my mind.
But you're on a flight and I can't even contact you.
Exactly. So you know you've got like 3 hours no contact. I would lose my mind.
So this was where like, there were so much of it was done over a phone, like over
I'm
text.
coming.
I have to
Book
go
my
with
flight,
you. At least go to the airport.
Yeah, I'm coming.
So that we can talk in the car.
I am coming.
See, I was the opposite. I was like, I do not want to see you.
It's also like, you don't get to do that to me.
And then
I find
disappear.
out and then go on a fucking business trip. Absolutely not. So you can even find more people in the hotel rooms. No, you are not going to have enjoyment.
No,
you
I need to
do that to
get
me
everything off my chest.
and have enjoyment.
I didn't think he was going through enjoyment by doing that. I think that, like, I was like, stay away. I was literally like, when in the conversation, he like touched my knee like that. And I literally like, I feel so physically ill. Like, do not touch me. Like, I did not want to be around him. I've seen him once since the break. Like, it was about 2 weeks after the breakup for the like final swapping of stuff. He'd moved out while I left the flat, was like, you move out. I don't want to be here. I don't want to see you. We saw each other once 2 weeks after the breakup to give him his final stuff. We had like a 3-hour conversation. But yeah, we've spoken once since, and yeah, it was just like there were a few things around, like things that weren't adding up in my brain that I just needed.
Did you ever debate staying?
Never. It would, like, when I make a decision, it is probably the one skill I will tell most women to learn. When you make a decision, you stick to it. Stop doubting your decisions. You know when you're making a right decision. All of this doubt afterwards is because of your feelings. It's because you miss him. What you are going through is a process of detachment. It is normal to miss him. It is normal to grieve him. I not only grieved my romantic partner, I grieved my best, like, he truly was my best friend. He was my family. Like, we were building a family together.
3 years is a bloody long time.
But also, it's time for a baby. Like, all the conversations we were having.
Even the hope of what the future was going to be, you've lost that as well.
The conversation about this Christmas. Like, this Christmas was hard because I was like, last Christmas, what we were talking about is like, next Christmas, you're either going to be pregnant or have a baby. Like, we're going to build our own traditions. Like, the person I missed most was my family. Like, he was the guy I went to for like all the things I don't tell the world. And like, when you're an influencer, everyone thinks you tell the world everything. There's actually so much I keep private. And like, there are things I keep private from even my friends. And like, I spoke to him about those things. And that's the part where, like, I mean, you can hear it in my voice. Like, that's the part where like my heart breaks, because like, he really did know me better than anyone in this world. And I think that's where it's hard to lose that, but that doesn't change the decision. The decision can't be about love. The decision has to be about respect and how you're treated. And I don't want to be with someone, like, even things like, I mean, right after the breakup happened, I had people being like, are you going to freeze your eggs? Blah, blah, blah. Because I hadn't shared about trying for a baby at all until after the breakup. And I was just like, no, I didn't just want to have a baby. I wanted to have his baby. And like, it's not this interchangeable process, but like, I'm now grieving that too. Of like, but what actually was the nail in the coffin was, so it happened at what, let's say 12 o'clock on a Sunday. I called my dad at 4:00 in the morning, and he had asked my dad for his blessing like 5 months before. And like I was talking to my dad, and I remember I just had this thought in my brain of like, let's say hypothetically, this is the only chance you have to have a kid. I understand you can have a child alone or whatever, because like that was my like greatest goal in life. I was like, hypothetically, this is the life coach in me. And like, I don't know why, but even at 4 a.m, I could not switch this on. And I went, hypothetically, if this is my only route to have a kid, like, would I still want to have a kid with him? And I was like, in my head, I was like, no, I don't want to bring another version of him in this world. And it's not about his genetics. It's also about the fact that he would be raising that child. Like, and that was the thing of like, there's no hope here. Like, what do we go? We go back to being an engaged couple. I don't want your ring. Like, we go back to now like planning a wedding. Like, like, no, do we go from day one and rebuild? Like, you don't deserve that time. Like, and also, I was an incredible girlfriend. Like, I was an incredible fiance. Like, I gave you my all, and this is what. And also, it was just like the mismatch of the things we'd said, like whether it's the united front thing, or I remember very early on in my relationship, I had to unlearn a lot of like anxious attachment. And you go through that. Like, when you're learning a healthy relationship, you have those conversations. And I remember one night, he was like, I really need you to now like address some of this stuff. And I was like, I'm working on it. Like, it's just, I need some time. And he was like, okay, I'm all in. Like, and he was like, I now need you to be all in. And I was like, just give me a moment. And we were talking about this thing, and we came up with this metaphor of like, in a relationship, you're going to have your wobbles. I'm going to have my wobbles. If we see our relationship as a candle, sometimes you have to hold the candle. Sometimes I have to hold the candle. But one of us can't be blowing out the candle while the other person's holding it. And that was always that he was like, I'm happy to hold a hand up to block your like, you're blowing, but you can't be like gusting, like, and it's such a weird analogy, but it was the thing that worked for us.
Makes sense,
And I was like, I just was like, you blew out the candle. Like,
that's it.
And
I think, what are your thoughts on women who do stay?
I have no judgment for women who stay, because I think ultimately I was in the easiest position to leave. Number one, we weren't married. Number two, we had no kids. We had no responsibilities. We didn't even like financially share an apartment. I had an apartment to go back to. There are people who are not in financial positions to leave. I just think though, if you are before this point, and if you have the chance to always, this is why I believe women should always stay financially independent, because you never want to be financially reliant on a man.
Gospel.
That's my gospel to the women.
100%. You want, like, if you are 20 years old, 30 years old, listening to this pre-engagement, all of this stuff, like, if I could tell you one thing, never rely, like, you just always want the option to leave. And you want the option to leave based on how you're being treated and your respect.
Not what you need.
Not what you need. And even when it comes to kids, look, ultimately, I think everyone's context is different. The reason why I don't judge people for staying is because, as I said, like, it would be different if it was a drunken thing. It would be different if it was a one-time thing. It would have been different if he had been honest after even 3 times and come to me directly and done the brave thing.
Rather than you finding out by someone. DMs.
Do you think you would have gone public if you had, like, would shared your story?
What do you mean? Previously?
If you'd stayed, if the things were...
No, because this is the other reason why I couldn't stay, because same as you, I can't hide my face. And I don't know how to lie. I don't have a job where I have to lie anymore. Like, even day to day, like,
I actually don't have to lie about anything.
And day to day, how many 90% of the world, if you work a 9-to-5 job, you need to be able to put a mask on and turn up and do your job. Like, me turning up and doing my job, I cry on podcasts. Who cares? I don't have to ever not be. If I'm pissed off that day, yesterday I recorded a podcast because I was pissed off, so I just turned up pissed off, like, ranted for 60 minutes. Like, I never have to filter what I'm thinking. My opinions are my opinions, and I'll stand by them, and I can back them up, and I'll be accountable for the shit I say. But like, having to come online and then pretend, I couldn't imagine it.
And imagine having to do a wedding and having to do all of that. Like,
it's the like, I didn't just have to pretend to be in a happy relationship. I had to pretend to be newly engaged. And then not only to my audience, forget that, my friends and family. So when you stay, you then become a protector of their secret. And I do think it's a heavy burden to bear. As I said,
if I stayed, I'm telling everything.
I'll be resentful.
But also, as I said, I don't know how he slept at night. Like, I don't know how I would sleep at night carrying this, like, frankly, what would feel like a sham of a relationship and being like, and also there was a bit of resentment of like, what? So I'm now meant to stay here and rebuild a relationship I didn't destroy?
Yeah.
Like, no.
And was there something about, it was one of your followers that came to you with it because of how you put yourself out there in this kind of like, was there something about a follower? And then let's say you stayed and then you planned a wedding or you carried on and you know that there was someone out there who knows the truth.
No, I don't think there's anything around that.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's much more so around even after the breakup, I could have put one of those classic like screenshot of my notes app being like, hi, I'm no longer in a relationship. Please respect our privacy at this time.
What did you do?
I did a 4-minute video saying that he cheated on me.
Good for you. You got to get it out there, mate.
But it's because I don't like how do I come back on? I've only ever known authenticity to a fault.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I can't come back and even just be like, I'm broken up. First of all, I do believe, like, if
and I just announced I can kill this man. Like, I went through my whole life never posting you nothing, and now I posted you.
Oh, do you know how many times I said to him, like, you literally could have told me a day before.
Yeah. Like, I would have been fine.
Yeah, and I would have been like a version of my boyfriend.
Yeah,
like,
and fine.
But I was like, how do I explain I was engaged for such a short time? I mean, in their perception, it probably would have been 3 weeks, not 24 hours. But I was like, how do I explain that? And then also, there's a thing around life coaching where we talk about like leading from the front. And I was like, so what? I'm going to lead from the front when I get engaged, share all my highs. And then I'm going to hide away. Like, it's not who I am. I don't know how to do that. Like, I had no extra bandwidth to just have to pretend. I don't know how to do it anyway at the best of times. I was like drained and empty. But then I also love my job and I wanted to come back. So like, I think I took like 3 weeks, a month off, and I came back and it was just like, hey, look, we're not engaged anymore. The day I announced my engagement was also the day I found out he was cheating on me. I still love him. It's over. I'm not going back, but like, please just don't go after him or try to find out who he is. It's not about him. But you need to know this, because even to this day, like, especially last year though, like, I didn't know how to post about when you're going through a breakup, all you talk about is a breakup. Like, all you're going through is heartbreak. And like, my content is so driven by like what I'm going through. I wrote a book about boundaries because I was learning how to set boundaries myself. I was going from being a people pleaser and a pushover. I wrote about dating because I was single for 7 years using dating apps and like loved, like, all of my books are like, I talked about body image because of my own experience. All of my conversations, all of my books are geared by like what I'm going through. And then I get a personal interest in it and I start researching it, exploring it. And so I was like, look, you're just gonna have to come with me. I mean, like, maybe I was a little bit naive in the way I made that video because, like, as I said, like, up till that point, no one had an interest in my personal life. I didn't imagine it becoming like this massive story where I then had to go on TV and address it. Like, because it was just like, I mean, there was an article about the fact that I changed my nail color, like that my engagement nails lasted longer than the engagement.
Oh my God, that's cheap. Who wrote that?
I mean, I made the joke first.
But they didn't need
to do
like,
that.
why was that a whole article? Like,
article.
it's not news.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember going to a wedding and before I dry cleaned the dress, they were going through a divorce.
Yeah, it happens.
And the dress was still like at the bottom of my laundry.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow.
damn,
When I saw the dress, I was like, oh, wow, I didn't wash my outfit yet.
I mean, this is what I'm
Like,
mad. So in our career, if we, like, what I would have come back to work-wise is like brand deals. I would have come back to brand deals for like wedding dresses,
Yes,
like
of course.
all of the stuff.
Yeah.
I came back to my doorstep with flowers and engagement cards all on it. Like, that's where like there was no other route. And also I don't believe anyone is owed that information, but for me, it felt right. Like, I think if anyone wants to have a private breakup, you do you.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. Again, no judgment. I'm just not a very judgmental person. I'm not giving people a roadmap on how to do a breakup.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure mine was the right way to do a breakup. All I know was it was authentic to me.
Yeah.
And it was how I wanted to do it. And I could go through the like public fire of like being judged for not knowing sooner and like being slut shamed for being on dating apps like too soon was another shit that I went through. And like, fine, throw all the mud at me.
Yeah, but
should
should we not slut shame the man in a relationship?
Exactly.
Well, so I
You're
said like,
still single.
I was too soon. I think too soon is
Soon
when
is-
you were
was
still
when
in
you're
the
in the
relationship.
and
How
you're
about
on
that?
dating
Yeah.
apps. I want to go back to something you said, and I wanted to ask it in terms of like a life coach perspective, because I think that there's loads of women who listen to this, friends of mine who are like high achieving, doing well for themselves, like whatever, like they are happy with who they are. They're content with the woman they've become, or they work consistently hard to become a better version of who they are, right? And they are consistently faced with men are intimidated by me, men are intimidated. I can't date because men think, oh, I don't need them, or I'm intimidating, or I look expensive, or whatever stupid reason it is. What advice do you give women like that? It's like, how do I date when I apparently am intimidating to any man ever?
Well, not every man, but the men you come across who are intimidated by you, let them go. Like, I literally had one, I went on I think it was a second date. He sent me a text last week saying, like, long story short, he hadn't Googled me. And I had asked him not to Google me. I was like, I'd rather you just get to know me in person. Yeah. When he Googled me, after the date, he said to me, like, by the way, I'm going to go home and Google you. I was like,
so you're already disobedient.
But you don't listen. To be fair, I was like, go for it. Like, my big thing is you get to know me first. So you go Google it. Then I get a text being like, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, the celebrity, I don't think I am, but like the celebrity dating coach aspect of it is too intimidating. I was like, thank you so much for your honesty. I really appreciate you letting me know. Like, I do genuinely, that's not even me just saying it. I genuinely respect him not ghosting. And I appreciate him just telling me the truth and telling me honestly what the issue was. But I'm not going to try to convince you.
Yeah.
Like, I could easily go down the route of like, I'm not a celebrity. Like, genuinely, like, I walk down the street absolutely fine.
Because the convincing of that means that I have to make myself smaller.
Yeah.
I can only convince you. I'm like, oh, no, it's not that big a deal. Oh, no, I'm not that successful. Like, but
and it sets a tone for the rest of the relationship.
But to those women, I truly believe it. And I've dated so many of them since. Like, there are secure men who feel strong enough in their masculinity. They are far and few between, in the same way that, like, in general, as a population, like, the most people don't work on themselves. Like, you just have to accept that. Like, as a population, man, woman, whatever, like, most people don't work on themselves. The route to finding someone who is secure in who they are is they have a curiosity about life. They are proactive in terms of their personal growth, and they are pursuing that. And that doesn't necessarily mean going to a therapist. That could be mean reading self-development books, wanting to be a better person, listening when they get told they fucked up, and like wanting to know how to do better, asking a question. Well, if you're in a fight and someone goes like, okay, what would you like me to do next time? I'm like, God, that's attractive. Yeah. Thank you so much. Like those are the things I want you to start paying attention to. And like all the trash men, you're not dating them anyway. Let them go.
Yeah. But there's also a thing about like, because I've got a thing like insecure men feel leave sexy girl alone. Because there are a thing about insecure men who go out and chase
target,
women,
and
then get upset but then their target is to bring them down. Like there are men who are insecure, that will go out for a girl that's more attractive than what they normally get. It was more, but their thing is, I'm gonna bring you down a couple of levels. And they're also insecure.
I feel like men always punch up though. Always. I think whether it's in relationships, whether it's jobs, they always aim higher.
But do you not think you would notice if someone was slightly negging you?
Oh, absolutely. I know.
Yeah, what's that term called again?
Negging.
That's the word.
So it's like a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
I remember one point I was in a club and I was by myself in a club. I was stood at a table and he was like, oh, you're all by yourself? And he was like, oh, don't you feel lonely? And I was like, you're negging me right now.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, I notice it. I remember someone saying to me before, I'm not one of your little fans. I was like,
okay.
I was like, where does that come from?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, how did we even get there? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then straight away I was like, oh, you're going to have a problem with this. Yeah, like, this is weird. And also, why aren't you my fan?
But I think
exactly.
You should be my fan, the fuck.
But I think also if you are a confident, especially if you're an outgoing and sociable person, a lot of the times you go on first dates and you walk away thinking you had a good time because you can actually hold a conversation with everyone.
I always say it. I have great dates because I am there.
Yeah.
It's got fuck all to do with it.
Yeah. And also I like talking.
I'm there.
So I'm going to enjoy it either way. Yeah. And to be fair, if I'm talking more, I'm really going to enjoy it. I love my own voice.
I love me. So, I'm so funny.
And I think that's where like if... I don't know how else, because I think the thing is that everyone attracts dickheads. It's about trying to get rid of them faster. I think there's a lot of conversation about who you attract is who you are. Bullshit. Who you keep is who you are.
Thank you. Yes, that's such a good point.
And I think this is where, like, you know what? You want to judge me for who I ended up in a relationship with? No, fuck that. That's on him, how he behaved. I said over and over, and I will still say it to this day, like, I do not own that shame. The shame is on him, how he decided to behave. The part I will own is that I left And I left quickly because I know what I deserve and I know there is a man out there who will give that to me, and it was not him.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And I like, when it comes to being single, I think there's so much fear around being single, especially because like, I mean, I did the like worst thing when it comes to patriarchy of like, I became single at 30 years old of like, when I was on the route to like baby and marriage, like, and I was like, fuck that, I'm done, I'm going to be single. And I think the reason why I did that was because I was like, I truly have like tattooed on my forehead, single is better than a bad relationship.
Yeah,
I learned it the hard way when I was 19 years old, and I've never gone back on that. And like, that's why I was single for 7 years in my 20s. I had the best time dating. I had positive experiences. And I think it's important to also talk about that, because I think being plus size, having surgery scars on my body, being mixed race, like having grey hair, like things like that, I always get told like, oh, you're limiting your dating pool. Your dating pool is going to be smaller than everyone else. And I was like, no, it isn't. All you hear about is women like me being fetishized and body shamed. And it's just not true. I go on incredible dates with incredible men. Are there men who intimidated me? Yeah, absolutely. And I don't go on a second date with them. Cool, bye. But like, I can still have a great night with a stranger and then like have a nice drink, have a nice evening. Like, we just set the benchmark so much lower when we're hanging out in any other context. Like, you don't go to a house party and go like, I'm only going to enjoy this house party if I walk out with 5 best friends. Like, it's so strange how we date.
But we date going, if it's not my husband, then it's all 14.
And also if I don't get a second date, then that was a waste of time. And it's like, well, did you have a nice drink? Did you get to know a new person? Did you learn something about yourself on that date? Because if I walk off a first date, we don't want a second, I was like, oh, but I realized actually if a guy's really stingy, I really struggle to date them.
Yeah.
I've learned something new. Great. That's a win. Why is that not perceived as a success?
Yeah.
If I've walked off a date and gone, actually, you're not the guy for me. Great. I know how to set my boundaries. When I was 19 years old, I would have carried on dating this guy because I didn't want to upset him. That's a win. Like, I think we so often want to put it in this pass-fail mechanism of like, unless I am attractive to him and I impress him, then, but it's such an outward thing where you can't control rather than putting the power in your realm. And I say like a lot of the time, because people go on dates with this goal of a relationship, set the goal as something else. So it could be something personal development. Like, I interrupt a lot, especially on a date, because I like
you both, babes.
So like, I saw like, especially in the beginning when I was trying to detach from this idea of like goal of a relationship, I was like, okay, my goal is to interrupt less. So like, even if the date is rubbish, I'm not interested in the guy, there is no second date, I can walk off and be like, okay, it was a personal development exercise. It was an experiment, and I passed the experiment. And like, I can take that new lesson and that new skill to not interrupt onto a date with a guy who I might have a future with.
Yeah.
Do you think everyone should have a hoe phase?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh my God, you didn't know the reason why I'm smiling is I've only just started saying this publicly. Like,
Okay, tell us more. Tell us more.
Okay,
and
so
does the hoe
define
phase?
hoe.
Yeah.
Because, I think it
So
varies.
I think hoe phase can look different for different people. I would say my hoe phase in my 20s looked like dating multiple people at the same time. What it made me do is it removed the scarcity mindset around men that like, I think going into it, especially if you're insecure, especially if you're plus size, you get told like
one person likes you and you have to keep it there.
but also
only the
men
other
don't
one
like
person.
fat women.
Yeah,
like
so
then I
true.
have to like, then I always think like the pool is so small for me compared to everyone else and my friends, for example. So it removes the scarcity mindset. Number 2, it makes everyone behave better. It removes the possessive guys really quickly, because how many guys before even a first date?
So wait, do you tell them that you're in your hoe phase?
No, not hoe phase. I will say,
You
I will
switch
say,
the language.
like, no, it's, for example, they'll be like, are you free on Tuesday night? I'll be like, sorry, I have another date.
Ah.
A guy can't say that to me. I can't lie.
No, I don't. Do you know what?
Just tell me you're busy.
I don't know that I could. I don't know that if I would
couldn't say
say.
it.
But do you know what? I realised I'm married, so I'm like out of the game or whatever. But I just think about like things I did do or what I would do if I was single, and like, I think I'm very sneaky. Do you know what I mean? So I just wouldn't want him to know my business.
Maybe, but also, you know what happens by doing that? You figure out who's really possessive. Like, so for example, I would do that and they would go, oh, I don't like that. And I'm like, okay, so there was this one guy who really had an issue with it. I hadn't even been on a first date with him. We had our first date planned. And I was like, he was like, oh, okay, so you're dating multiple people. I was like, yeah. And then he said, okay, well, I don't really like that. I was like, right, okay, so if I follow that policy, I actually booked in your first date after the other first date, so I'd cancel yours. And he was like, oh, okay, never mind. And I was like, yeah, never mind, because I just don't think this is going to work.
Yeah.
And also, ultimately 90% of men are dating non-exclusively. So it is unbalanced if the woman is solely dedicated to you before you've even met and the man isn't. So I would say that's one version of a hoe phase. The other version of a hoe phase is exploring what you like sexually, which I do think is very important. And I think the benchmark for a woman having a good sex life is so low because we do not talk about women having pleasure in the bedroom enough. And we have normalized men being selfish in the bedroom and not being reciprocated whatsoever. And I think ultimately Google exists, and it is shocking to me how many men don't just sit on Google and not porn, but like
like
women's
actual
magazines, women's
stats.
reviews, read
like
stuff.
Bring up a picture of a vulva and actually look at where the clit is. Like things like that. I think if a woman has, when women talk about like, I don't enjoy sex, yes, absolutely, there's a potential that you're asexual. But more women than not, I think, is more so because they've not had that chance to explore. And I think what happens when you explore sexually, like forget the patriarchy message of like the more sex you have, the lower your worth and all this bullshit, because men are allowed this permission all this time. But I think what happens...
And they're still not great.
Yeah.
How can you have all this freedom and you're still shit?
Because they go into each experience with the exact
same thing.
Roadmap where their goal is to get their finish. And they don't care about your finish. And especially like what I find as well is like there's a huge conversation around like more casual interactions means that they're going to prioritize your pleasure less. I don't actually think that's true because I think when you have multiple experiences with different people, you actually figure out how different dynamics within the bedroom actually mean you act differently as well. And I think just knowing like, taste the buffet. Just taste the buffet.
Exactly.
Like
have a sample of everything on the platter.
Like the thing I always say about being single as well is like be single until you find a man who's worth giving it up for. And then when you like that was that man for me.
But that's because you don't see singleness as a negative, whereas many women see singleness as that they haven't been chosen or they've been left behind so they will just go into anybody that's willing to get them out of what they seem a bad situation.
But I worked really hard to do that.
Yeah.
So
how did you do that?
Where
singleness wasn't a bad thing anymore to you?
I didn't. So I came out of a really bad relationship when I was 20 years old. I learned single is better than a bad relationship, but like then I had to practically learn it. And like what I noticed was actually I was going into sessions with my life coach. We were talking about all the things, massive career things that were happening in my life. And then I'd start dating someone and all of our sessions would be about this guy. And I started resenting the fact that like all my money for these therapy sessions were going towards talking about these men who were not going to therapy. So I had so much to figure out. I was off the back of like being diagnosed with PTSD because of my surgeries. And I was like, look, I don't know who I am right now. How the hell am I going to add another person to this mess when I've not figured out what I want, which part of my career I'm liking? Like there were so many things. Like at the time I had clients and I was like wanting to navigate into like being an author and then wanting to do more media and these things. So I was like, we're just going to stop dating until I figured out my career and I figured out my mental health. And it ended up being 3 years. I didn't mean it to be 3 years. But the thing that then changed it was I did my TED talk and I came home to an empty house and my housemate wasn't home. And I was like, I think I want
to share this with someone.
Yeah. And like, it wasn't anymore that I needed it. It was, and that was what I told myself. I was like, I'm not going to start dating until that feeling of like, I need someone in my life disappears and it's just a want.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I came home and I was like, oh, it would have been
nice. It would be nice to like call someone or go to dinner after or something after
and have someone who'd been there through the whole journey and knows how important this is to me and like celebrate with. And I was like, oh, I want this. I don't need it anymore. And so I really just like, I think why it ended up being 3 years, it really like I had to teach myself, like I had to learn how to be alone. Being alone also means like, and when I say being alone, I mean like physically on a Saturday night, sitting in by yourself and knowing you had the options of plans and being like, I chose to spend time with me because I deserve it. And I'm actually going to face the voices in my head, which is largely what you're running away from. You're running away from feelings of loneliness. You're running away from, and ultimately, if you are feeling lonely a lot of the time, it's probably because you self-abandon a lot and you are not being yourself at the expense because you want the approval of
Okay,
others.
so what would you say are the signs of self-abandonment?
When you're in a different room, you're a different person. That when people are talking, you are trying to impress them so much, you are willing to bend your morals, your values, your opinions in order to be liked. Like anything people pleaser, anything that, like, we know those people. Like, they say one thing to your face, say one thing behind your back. Like, one of the biggest principles that you can build into your life today is say what you mean and mean what you say. And even if it's hard, and even if it's clumsy and messy, and it doesn't have to be a perfect conversation, and feelings can get hurt.
And I can change my mind after. I can learn something new and be like, actually, I don't think that anymore now.
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
Change my mind after.
And I think a lot of people don't give themselves permission. Like, you can get to know a friend and then just be like, I don't like this new part of you that I discovered. Like, a year into our friendship.
And also my big thing is, I think when people, just speaking about friendships and people are changing and evolving or whatever, I think it's important to give time to meet that new version of yourself. Because I think people decide that they want to be the new version. They haven't introduced it to their friends, but they decided that, oh, then that friend is not good enough for me anymore because I'm not this person.
Yeah.
Introduce how you want to be treated now because they're used to the old you.
So the first, there's a saying that says, like, if you bring someone on the journey, they're more likely to join you. And so when I first started setting boundaries, I was like extreme 10 out of 10 people pleaser, pushover, like, and then I suddenly was setting boundaries. And
wait, can I ask, right? Because I'm not a people pleaser. What
Never?
do you... I can be.
When you were younger?
No, I can be now still to people that, because I want to please it. Like, it's never a thing of that. I want to do it because, actually, am I lying? I'm not a people pleaser in the sense of that. That's okay. Let me ask you first.
You don't tell people what they want to hear.
Yes, I'm not a people pleaser in that sense. I'm also not a people pleaser in. Am I lying?
No, you'll do things. I think there's a difference between being a people pleaser and doing things to please people. Do you know what I mean? So doing things to please people is someone that you value your friends and you value your family, and if they need something of you, you want to make them happy.
Can I tell you what the difference is between them?
Yeah.
One is consciously deciding to do something to make someone happy is very different to doing something because you want to be liked.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the first one then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
I'll do something because I know that, oh, they will like this thing.
Yeah.
This will make them happy.
Yeah.
But also, is there a little part in all of us that's like, and because it will make them happy, I've been of service to them, so they will like me.
So there is a very innate evolutionary part of us that we want to be accepted by our in-group. And it's evolutionary because if your tribe didn't like you, you would die.
Yeah.
Like, we all have that part to us. I think where you walk through the world and you do it to such an extent that you are burning yourself out, you are exhausting yourself, you don't know where the line between you and I, because also, people pleaser is sometimes put on a pedestal of like, they're such a good person.
They're such a good person, yeah.
But actually, it's really annoying when you're trying to decide dinner with a people pleaser and they're going, I don't mind. And then you're like, great, let's have Chinese. And
What
they're
do you
literally
want?
like, oh, I don't like Chinese. And I'm like, oh my God, just tell me what you said. But also, like, a lot of people pleasers are really non-confrontational. And as a result, they're the kind of person who, like, I've had it in the workplace where people are like, that's not an issue, that's not an issue. And then suddenly everything's urgent and important because actually it was an issue 2 weeks
they
ago.
just didn't say it,
but they didn't say anything because they were in like professional language being like, not to worry, no worries at all. And then suddenly, like, that's people pleasing because like you were trying to be like easygoing, and it's also a lot of our training as women of like being easygoing, easy to like, not difficult, all of this stuff. So I think when I talk about being a people pleaser, I was like 19 years old and it was like two moments. It was one moment with the boyfriend at the time who I basically hadn't picked up his call for an hour. I was at a birthday party. And when I looked at my phone, it was like a million notifications. I called him, was like, what's wrong? Like, what happened? He was like, oh, nothing. You're just normally at my beck and call. And I was like, what? I was like, not only did you think it, you said it to my face.
So I'm a mug. So to you, I'm a mug.
And so like, then I got home and all my friends were like, all my housemates were fighting. And one of the housemates were like, do you know what we have to tolerate living with you? And I remember being like, whoa, hold up. How the fuck have I had people in my life treat me like this, talk to me like this? And it was these two moments back to back when I was 19 years old that I went, there is something about how I'm acting that is telling people they're allowed to treat me this way.
What
And
was
that's
the thing?
What
was the thing that they were talking about?
It was a housemate argument. It was like about heating and the dishes and the plates. And frankly, it wasn't even a fight about me. I just walked into the wrong fight. Like, and I just walked home as they were all fighting. And it was just, like, one of the things they said they had to tolerate about me is I talk really loudly. So I'm really loud when I'm on the phone. Like, things like that. It was just silly things. But it was just more so that I went like, oh, I've wanted these people to like me so badly. I've not actually thought or considered whether they treat me well. And it was this wake-up call that like really taught me how to set boundaries. And actually, in order to set boundaries, you have to be okay with being disliked. And like there are lots of people who dislike me now because I'm direct, I'm blunt. And it also is going to be off-putting in the dating sphere as well. Because like a lot of men don't like a woman who's like not going to bend over backwards for them. But also, being a direct woman is a lot more confronting than being a direct man, because directness in men is a trait that is praised. Whereas like a direct woman is seen as difficult. But that's not my problem. How you perceive me is not my responsibility.
I actually think it's so important to have people that just don't like you, because I think that's when you are being the truest version of yourself to every. Like, I think if there's a thing of that, I'm malleable to be whatever version of me you like. I'm not a real person because I'm just whatever it is that you would like as a person. Like, I'm religious, and there's a Bible verse that goes something along the lines of like, what does a man gain when he loses himself or gains the world? If I'm myself and I haven't lost myself, I don't care if the world doesn't love me or doesn't like me, because I'm like, oh, I'm concrete in who I am. I like me.
But also it's an illusion to think that people pleasers are more liked.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
so then you go towards
but
that.
There's no metrics for that though, is there? Because you're doing everything everybody says. So how do you know that you're truly liked?
You're not liked for you. You're liked for
your performance.
Yeah.
So the difference between how we behave and how people pleasers behave is, even when someone likes a people pleaser, they still don't know if they like you for you. At least I know with the way I behave, if you like me, you actually like me because I'm the real me. Whereas like if I'm pretending, then now I'm in a rock and a hard place.
I didn't even know.
Where like you dislike me, but do you actually dislike the version I'm presenting, or do you dislike the real me?
And imagine doing all of that, pleasing to still not be liked. Do you know how long that is?
God,
that like
you have to be a real asshole.
I have deprived myself of so many things and wasn't the real version of myself.
Yeah.
And they still don't like me. And then it's just like, so what was the version if I was myself? Maybe they would have liked.
Yeah, maybe they like that version.
Sort of thing. So there is that, and I do find that very, very interesting. But like, this whole thing was meant to be about love, and we're really shat on love right now. But I wanted to ask you, like, what has been, because this your whole situation happened to you 8 months ago, right? And I think we get loads of like emails and letters about like heartbreak and moving on and healing. What does that journey look like? Like, how were you here now able to talk about it and able to talk about it in the last 8 months and deal with it? Like, what does it look like when you go home by yourself, when you remember all of these things?
So I would say I have had 2 dating periods in the last 8 months. I've also had a period of aloneness where that lasted about 6 months. So, well, that's not proper maths, but like 1 month of dating, 6 months of single, and then 1 month of dating. And in those 6 months, it was just sitting at weekends are hard.
Sunday.
The lack of companionship.
I don't know why Sunday's so hard.
Lack of companionship as you hit your 30s is more difficult. Dating was easier though in my 30s because people know themselves better, more communicative. I've never had better interactions with men than in my 30s because I am very clear about what I want. They are very clear about what they want. And then the loneliness, honestly, there were times I didn't think I would survive it. Like it just, I didn't know. I went around to all my friends and apologized because I did not know how bad heartbreak is. Like it just rips you open in a way that like, and like there are things I could say that could comfort you, like that, like the depth of the heartbreak is the depth of the love that you have in a relationship and all that shit. But like all of it, like it doesn't help.
I'm not trying to hear that shit. Yeah.
But this is what I mean. Like no one could say anything. If I'm being really honest, there was nothing in those 6 months anyone could say to help me. The only thing that someone could have done is just be there. And like there were friends I called at like 9 o'clock at night and was just like, I can't do this. Like, please come over. I don't care what we do. I don't care if we turn on the I just need to be, I need humans around me. And I think don't try to do it alone. Humans don't heal in isolation. But there was so much within the breakup, which I think I am lucky for because I'm a life coach, that other people do to themselves that causes greater suffering. That isn't necessary. So, for example, entertaining taking them back. You have to go through the detachment process. And it's not just love, it's also detachment. And it's a very physical ripping apart because when you live with someone, especially when you share the same bed, there's a co-regulation that happens that you are now disentangling. And it's a very physical sensation. Then the rejection piece of it, like it's been shown that rejection has the same impact on your brain as a physical pain response. So like when you feel like your heart is genuinely, there were points I thought I was having a heart attack.
I can physically feel my heart.
It's physically like, but also just like the training and being a life coach was like, I gave myself full permission to cry at all times. I just walked around with sunglasses for 8 months. Like I actually forgot my sunglasses.
But where's this? I remember being on a train once and it was just a normal, and I just burst into tears. And I was just like, what kind of life is this? Like, I just started crying.
You know, the joke I would make was I was like, everyone thinks I'm a like stuck-up influencer walking in with sunglasses, but like then I lift the sunglasses and it's like
crying my eyes out,
swollen eyes underneath.
Or like waking up the next morning after crying yourself to sleep, and you just see your eyes
and all your pillows still wet. Can
I
just say something really quickly? So, is there any comfort that helps the healing process and the heartbreak process, knowing that they're begging you back? Can that ever be that? Because I know that gives me my boost, but I don't think that goes hand in hand with the detachment thing, because you're still in communication with them. But I know when I've gone through a heartbreak, what has exacerbated it is when they don't contact me.
Oh, it makes it worse for you.
It makes it worse. What do you mean? You're
okay,
not,
but that's the stories you're telling
me?
yourself. So the stories you're telling yourself when they don't contact you is like, I'm forgettable. I was replaceable.
Yeah, like you must have never loved me.
They've moved on.
Yeah.
But this is where being a life coach helps, where like I do not go down paths or thoughts that make it harder for you. You are going through enough. And I just think it's not a competition with the next woman. Like I truly don't believe it's a competition with the next woman. I don't think you can measure how much someone loved and cared about you based on how quickly they move on, how much they contact you. Yes, I mean, genuinely, heart of heart, I got no kick out of being like, I still want to be with you. My response internally was like, you're deluding yourself. Like, that's literally it. Like, how does that give me an ego boost when it's from a man whose opinion and value I don't really respect anymore? Do you get what I mean? Like, it's just, and also, it's not about him anymore. Like, that's the main thing I would say to anyone who's going through heartbreak. Anytime you have a thought about him, stop. Because you need to conserve all of your time and energy for you. It's about you and how you're feeling. And all of the stories you tell yourself of like, our love didn't matter, he didn't care about me. Like, you don't know that. Stick to the facts. The facts is you are broken up, you are staying broken up, and this is going to bloody hurt. And another fact is it will get better. It has to. And like, genuinely, October was like the worst, and like all weekend I would just cry and then turn up on Monday, somehow do my job, get through the week, and then just cry all weekend. And I just did it nonstop. And I there were points I was like, God, is this ever going to end? Like, how does this end? How does this get better? And I was just like, look, I'm at fucking rock bottom. It must get better. It has to. Because there's nowhere lower to go.
The only way is up.
There's nowhere lower to go.
And I just think you have to complete the process. And like when I was struggling to like continue to feel it, because it is just so draining and exhausting, I would tell myself that the more I feel it now, the less I have to process it when the next relationship comes along. Because whatever you don't process, you drag into the next relationship. And I don't want this shit again. Like, I am going to do all the healing work I need to make sure that this baggage is not baggage and belongs to him. Because like, I don't want to, it's too, as I said, it's too heavy burden to bear. I don't want to walk through the world. I also don't want to walk through where you said like, we've been down on love. I truly believe in love, and I truly believe I will love again. And I think it's because I refuse to give anyone else that power to take my optimism about the world away from me.
That's not yours to take.
And you know, again, I learned this from my first boyfriend. At 19 years old, when we broke up, he said to me, one day someone's going to screw you over so bad that you'll become skeptical like the rest of us.
Damn, that's cold.
I know, right? And I, in that moment, 19 years old, was like, never, not you, not any other man. No person is going to have that power. And same with my ex-fiance. I was like, no.
I'm kind of like that. Like, you're not going to take that away from me.
And also fuck you, who are you to decide what my future is? You don't get to be, like, you don't get to write the story of my life as like, I got screwed over by a man in my 30s and I never lived to love again. Like, no. Who says that's my story? I get to decide my story. I wake up every day and decide my story. And if my story right now is I'm heartbroken and I'm going to feel into it, then that's a strength in a world that encourages you to be numb. Like, I truly believe the strongest people actually feel all their feelings. And the only way through your feelings is to sit there and feel it. There is no quick fix. There is no pill I can. This is where like it's sometimes frustrating to be a life coach because people will be like, help me. And I'm like, I know, it sucks.
And a lot of people's go-to is fuck love. Like, do you know what?
Yeah.
Like, but there's, like you said, it's like you're
yeah.
numb to it. And I feel so strongly about that. Like, there is so much strength in the vulnerability of, like, I feel my feelings.
But
Like,
also another
I'm not
version of
numb
it is
to
like
it.
men are trash. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
right, how is that helpful to you?
Yeah.
Like, if you are straight, if you have the option to date anyone who isn't a man,
Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah.
Like, I praise you and all of it. But like, if you don't, like, if you are straight, how is this helping you?
Now what?
All it is doing, so there's a thing in your brain called a reticular activation system, which means you pay
A what?
attention. Reticular activation system.
Particular activation
Which means
system.
you pay attention to things you already believe. So, for example, let's say you have a belief in your brain that says, I am ugly. If someone walked past you in the street and honked at you, your brain goes, I am
They're
ugly.
honking 'cause
They
they're
honked at me
ugly.
because I'm
Oh.
ugly. And it will pay attention to
Not
the
me,
honk.
bro. I'm like, oh, you
Is
think
that
I'm
what I'm
sexy?
like?
Right? Okay. So if you're beautiful, like this is a very like rudimentary example.
of course.
But
Yeah.
if you're beautiful and you walk down the street and someone goes like, but in the same way that like I will talk, if a friend is insecure, I'll be like, you know that guy was hitting on you, and they'll be like, no, he
It
wasn't.
wasn't. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
you literally, your reticular activation system went, this is not important information because you don't believe it to be true. So it's not needed. So it goes in the discard pile. There is so much more information going through your senses than your conscious brain is able to absorb. And if it's part of your belief system and goes like, I'm a beautiful, attractive woman, and of course a man's going to be interested in me, and someone's hitting on you, your brain will go, this is important information. This aligns with our belief system.
Download.
Brain activated.
But genuinely, like I
Do you know what? It's so, because I think there is a thing about people, like their partners are frustrated them because they don't believe in the good things that the partner was saying about them. Like,
That's
so,
annoying.
yeah. So even outside
I
of
couldn't- I
compliments,
don't have
someone could be
patience
like,
for
I love you. I think you're incredible. We're gonna, but you're like, no, people let me down, so this is not true. I don't believe that.
That's
you're,
what my ex did.
Yeah.
Every time I gave, like for 3 years, I was giving him all these compliments and he was going, she doesn't mean it, she doesn't mean it, she doesn't mean
Yeah.
it. So I might not, as well have not been
What was
saying
that?
it.
Yeah.
Like, and friends, women do this all the time. This is why, like, one of the core things about building self-esteem is stop shooting down the compliments people give you, especially when the compliment a woman is giving you is something you hear all the time. Do you think multiple people are wasting their time and energy and their breath to compliment you for no reason?
But sometimes
Strangers as
your
well.
brain feels like they've all gathered together and they're like, we're all gonna lie to her
Strangers.
and say to her, like,
In
that
what
hasn't
world?
happened. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And also, even if you can't believe it, accept it. Say thank you. That's all you have to say. Like, you just stop shooting it down. It's a thing that makes no sense to me because I'm literally like, people don't waste their breath. How many times? Do you know how many times I've thought positive things about people and then just couldn't be
didn't
bothered to
say it.
say
Yeah.
it? Like, if
More
I
often than not.
bothered to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
it,
yeah.
can you please appreciate it like
Yeah,
a gift it was
yeah.
intended? Like, I have no negative. There's no big gain for me lying to your face. Like, and also I don't give compliments out easily. So when I do, I really mean it.
Yeah.
And I just think that's one of the ways you can start building self-esteem, but also like being aware of how you've built all these beliefs. So like, where did the belief I am ugly come from? Well, okay, society told me that scarred people like through the media is always the villain in the storyline. Okay, I was brought up in a family where being size 10 was fat and I'm size 20. So therefore, like I learned all this stuff. Start unpicking all this stuff and being like, okay, now what is the belief that is helpful to you? Like, I can hand on heart be like, I'm a fucking gorgeous woman.
Sure.
I don't
I know, that's
care
right.
if you agree. And like, I don't care who disagrees. And I don't care how many comments today I get on Instagram telling me I'm fat and ugly. And I literally will be like, and? Because I believe it.
Yeah.
Like, and it's taken me years to get to this point. So it sounds like the worst thing about talking about any of this stuff is then people go like, oh, it's easier said than done. And I'm like, yeah, I'm 10 years in.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I started when I was
It's a
19
journey.
years
And I'm
old.
always
As
like,
I
if you know
said.
the work I've put into myself, you know why I like me so
Yeah.
much. You know why I love me so
I
much.
wrote
Because I
100
know the investments I've put into this.
I wrote 100 reasons why someone would want to date me. I wrote 100 reasons why I'm
Wouldn't.
beautiful. Like, this is one of the first exercises
Yeah.
I give my life coaching clients. And it's something that I think everyone should do. And people are like, oh, but it's so long. How about if I do 10? Why are you
Wait, what's the
negotiating?
exercise? Tell me what the exercise is.
Write 100 reasons why someone would want to date you.
Okay.
And literally, like, the first thing people do is like, how about I do 10? And I was like, why are you negotiating with me? Like,
That 100.
like sit
100 is a
there.
lot, boy.
It takes
I'm trying to think.
It takes about 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah,
like,
that's
if
a
I'm being
lot.
honest.
Yeah.
And clear a day, make a day for it. Tell yourself you deserve that time. And if you don't know 100 reasons, then you don't know what you're bringing to the table. And and what will happen, usually you get stuck about like 50. There's what I call a second wave. Sit there. Sit there until you have to search for it. That moment where you start having to search for your next reason, like that's when you start building a belief system. So when you quit at 50, you do all the easy ones. You're like, oh, I have a great career. Blah, blah, blah.
Funny.
Like, yeah, I'm like, great. That's all like wonderful. What I care about the second wave is like when you sat there and you forced yourself, like squeeze the rock of all the juice in it, like literally like get every single thing. It's why, like, everyone's like, how'd you leave so quickly? And I was like, because I did that when I was 19 years old. I've done it for so many things. I've done it for like 100 reasons why someone would want to be my manager when I was looking for a new manager. Like, I do it all the time. And it means, like, you know your self-worth. Like, it's an exercise that pays off in dividends that you will not even know. I didn't even know consciously. But as this was happening to me, I was just like, I'm not staying. Like, it's because I have 100 reasons. See,
I'd be thinking the opposite.
No, do you know what? Honestly, I can't exaggerate enough. I think there is so much strength in leaving. I think and this is not thing to anybody. I think sometimes it's easier to stay.
Yeah, because you're going back to your same comforts.
It's just like, you know what? Let me forget it. And that's no judgment or whatever. But people who, I love strict women who are like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm done.
So it's the familiar versus the unknown. Like what I essentially did by leaving was I threw my entire future in the bin. Yeah. Like everything I imagined. But also my calendar for the next year of like all the weddings we were meant to go to, all the holidays we had booked. We had about 4 holidays booked last year. We had 4 weddings we were meant to go to on his side of the family. Like all of that was in the bin. I then was looking from April onwards the rest of the year.
To nothingness.
Empty calendar. No clue what I was going to do. And I was like, okay, I have no answers. Let's lean into it.
No part of you thought, let's see.
What, the relationship?
To work it out, yeah.
Honestly, no. People don't believe me.
No, I believe it. No, I'm just asking.
There were... No.
And that's good. That's no.
I'm trying to search where, like, in the depths of, like, my heartbreak, did I ever go, like... So I guess the closest I came to it was on the phone to him in October. I said to him, I just wish we could have ended this relationship in any other way where we could have ended like if we had called like there was the one story I guess I told myself, because I was so careful about any stories I told myself, is if there was some way where we could have ended after 2 years before any of the cheating started, we could have stayed friends and we could have like been in each other's lives in some aspect. I don't know. I think it's a story though, because I don't think most people can stay friends with their exes. And I think ultimately, even if you can, when the new person comes along,
that relationship needs to fizzle away.
Yeah. And also it ends up being baggage. It ends up being an impact on your new relationship without a clear cut. And I think what I was searching for in that story is like, I to this day, I still miss the guy who was my family. Like, and that's valid and that exists, but that doesn't mean I made the wrong decision. Yeah. And I think I have a very good intuition. I have a very good gut, and that gut was just like, nope. And it was just a no. And I never, like, when you make a decision in all areas of life, even my career, it's a closed door. Like I've made the decision, it's done, move on. Like, if I told you no around a job, I'm not going back and being like, should I have done that job? Should I have not done that? It's such a big time waster. And it's also like, it builds this level of self-doubt about every decision you make. And I think if women could get firmer about, you make a decision and you trust yourself that you made the best decision with all the resources and information you had at the time, in the same way that when I said yes to a proposal, I also made the best decision I had with all the information I had. Yeah. And then, as you said, I'm allowed to change my mind 24 hours later because I got new information. Yeah. And that new information meant I made a different decision. And what changed was, as I've always said, be single until you find someone who's worth it. He was no longer worth it. And I was done. Okay. Like, and that it's as black and white as that. And I literally was just like, trying to unpick that scab of just like, well, maybe I didn't. That's where you are going to make yourself suffer more in heartbreak. And that's why when people are like, my heartbreak lasted 3 years though, I've not got over it, the first thing I will say is, what are you telling yourself? And it's usually, he was the one who got away. He was the love of my life. I will never find someone like him. He was the one. I don't know how to ever trust anyone again because he was the only person I could ever trust. well, you could never really,
you couldn't really trust him anyway. Because
you couldn't really trust him anyway. But like, if you have already told yourself all those things, of course you're never going to move on.
Yeah.
But are any of those things true? No.
And there's definitely a power in, I think you said it earlier, well, you did say it earlier, about understanding that they're the ones that fucked up. And I think that if you take that on, then of course you've got all this self-doubt because you're victim blaming, you're blaming yourself and you're looking at the things that you could have done differently. And I can see why that would stifle moving on. Whereas if you don't accept it, because you didn't do anything wrong, you were honest, you gave your all, you were a good partner to this person and they fucked up, why shouldn't I move on?
And I think this is where everyone's like, why did you decide to do it so publicly? Because I was like, well, okay, let's imagine it's very hard for people to understand if you have an element of shame. Whereas I was like, I have no shame about who I am. I have no shame about what I did in this relationship. And I have no shame about being cheated on because I know it's not a reflection of me. But my story became a lightning rod for any woman who's been cheated on and felt shame about being cheated on and felt like it was a measure of their self-worth. And that's why I think it was very important to say, and I truly believe it with my heart, that the shame does not belong to you, because then you will move differently in the heartbreak period if you believe you own any of it. And I don't. It literally was like, I talk about someone handing, so I think when people body shame, it's like them handing you a bag of shit and being like, can you hold this for me? Because usually it's from their own body shame. And you going like, yeah, absolutely. And you're walking around stinking because you're holding their bag of shit. And like, I basically took the bag of shit and went, no, you have it back. I'm done.
Yeah. And there's so many things that badly behaved men do and they put the blame on women to carry. Like even when we think about like sexual assault and stuff, they put the blame on the victim to carry. And it's not your shame. This person did this
do you know
thing
how many people who said like, oh, if you were thinner, he wouldn't have cheated? I was like, I was the same size the day I met him. Like madness.
And also there's that rhetoric of like, oh, she can't keep a man. It's like it's always a you thing.
Also,
you're the one that did something. Make sure you don't mess this up this time.
I don't think I got this because I was saying we were trying for a baby, but people like, you were clearly not having enough sex with him. And I was like, thank you so much for your commentary on my sex life. We were trying for a baby. But also why should I have to say
if someone's going to do it, they're going to do it.
Exactly.
I don't think it's
dependent on sex every day.
I think there's an illusion that cheating is around sex. It's actually not about the sex. As I said, like he also went on dates where he didn't sleep with them. And I think it was about the date where he got to be the big man, the big shot. Like, wow, so impressive. Yeah. And then you're coming home to a woman who, I was probably moaning about the dishwasher.
And I think there is something quite scary about not just men, I guess people who always need to be deemed impressive. Because eventually, when I've been with you for a certain amount of years, I'm not going to look at you like, wow.
You're not gonna be shiny and new
if you always needed to be looked as new and shiny, you're going to look elsewhere for it.
Okay, but you know what's funny about dating a life coach? So I've written a dating book. I spent 2 years of our relationship writing a dating book. So I'm like deep in the research. Every time I found a new piece of research about having a healthy relationship, obviously I passed it on to him.
Yeah.
One of the things that will crumble a relationship the fastest is that like, oh, as you said, like when you walk in and like you see him every day, like you're not going to be like, wow. But there is a piece of research of like, if you actually put down what you're doing and you greet each other properly and you say hi and like, so I did a very conscious thing of like, and I told him about it and I was like, we need to, when you leave a room, when you walk into a room, we greet each other properly. We are not going to get numb to each other. And it is something that we are going to have, even if it's a second of intimacy or a second of connection, we are not going to be ships in the night where we just don't acknowledge each other. It's a way that it leads to the detriment of a relationship. And one of the things he said to me in October was like, I just miss coming home to you because you used to always look at me like you were so excited to see me every time. And I was like, that was a piece of, like that it wasn't a conscious thing. It was the thing I spoke to him about. But I was like, yeah, because I actually was excited to see you.
You should get a dog then.
Yeah,
I'm always happy for you to enter. So you should get a dog. Like if he misses it so fucking much, a dog will run up to him when he gets home because you don't get to tell me you missed that and you fucked it.
But you know what also I think a really piece of like big learning for a lot of women is one of the reasons they go back as well is the fact that they go back to men who had to learn by losing you. And I will never believe in that. Like, and there are people in the media. I was listening to a podcast the other day about like people who'd been cheated on and like, oh, but he learned his lesson. He realized what he lost.
That's the story all the time.
You had to lose me to figure out what I was worth. Then I don't want that. It's just, I shouldn't have to convince you. I shouldn't have to chase you, and you shouldn't have to lose me to learn.
Oh, that is a beautiful note to end on.
No, that's such a
That
good point.
is such a good point.
Because like when I was here, why didn't you see my work? Why didn't you
Exactly.
see all of this? Why was it when I was gone?
When I was
Like,
gone?
Yeah, he only noticed how excited I was to see him when
you weren't there
when I
anymore.
wasn't there anymore.
Okay, so to end, what are the 3 things? I know this is such a cliche question.
Yeah.
You would tell to actually one to women who have just been broken, like who have just had a heartbreak or whatever. One to women who are dating, and one to someone who is trying to be like, I'm okay being single. Advice.
Okay, so to the dating person, I would say you don't have to be excited for the first date. Get it off the app as soon as possible. But you don't have to have excitement about meeting a stranger you've never met before. That is a very high benchmark to set. Be less selective on the apps. Be more selective on the first date of who gets to the second date.
Okay.
And I get we all have a lot of, like, we're very precious around our time. I don't want to be going on all these dates. Fine, do a phone call first. Like, but you being selective over how someone texts, it doesn't add up. Like, some people can be really good at texting and really bad in person and vice versa. Like, it's just not a good measure.
Yeah.
To the person who is alone, I would say actually put the effort in to make your time alone. So I'll use practical things. If you eat chips out of a bag when you're alone, but then if you had guests over, you would put it into a bowl, why aren't you doing that for yourself? If when you have guests over, you put the side lamp on, but then when you're home alone, you put the bright light on. Why are you lighting the candle for your guests but not for yourself? Why are you saving the hand cream for a gift but not actually using it for yourself? Like, all of these things are small micro ways you are telling yourself, I'm not worth it.
That's so reassuring to me because I look after me in my household. I want the dipstick candle, all of the good ones.
But also, like,
that's
the
affirmed to
number
me.
of people I see who, like, their stuff's expired because you're like, oh,
I'm saving
it's
it
too
for.
expensive. Saving it for what?
Yeah.
For you to die? Like, or to expire?
Yeah.
And then to the heartbreak person, oh God, it's just surround yourself with people. You can't do it alone. You will just need to ask your friends to be. Everyone's busy. Like, if you need someone there, you need to pick up the phone. And I think one of the things that held me back the first 2 weekends that were the hardest. I would say, like, the whole of October the weekends were just impossible. October and September and October and November.
It's all a blur.
Yeah, honestly, like, but what held me back was there would be points at like 9 o'clock at night. I would be like, I can't do this. I can't be alone. And I need to talk to someone. Like, I like, my heart is breaking open, all of that. And then there would be a voice that would go, you can't call someone at 9 o'clock at night. It's a Saturday night. Everyone else has plans. Like, it would be rude to call someone at 10 o'clock at night. This is past the acceptable hour. Like, all this nonsense. And the weekend I finally did it and I called a friend at 9 o'clock at night. She was like, last weekend I was sat crying by myself too. And I was like, and I told myself I couldn't call because I think it was 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, that story you tell yourself, just call. Your friends will understand. Like, even if they don't, and I don't think I understood until I went through it myself, they love you, they care about you. They, like, even if they don't pick up, try. And, like, I think that's where sometimes, like, the heartbreak of it, and especially if you have shame involved in it, it causes you to isolate. And I think that isolation means you're actually pulling away from people who are willing to be there for you.
Yeah.
And then also, I think every person going through heartbreak, you have to have no contact. And, like, when I eventually called him in October, it was me sitting on wanting to call him for over a month. It was not an impulsive decision. It was like, and when it really hit that peak of, like, okay, I think I'm at the lowest low. I don't think it can get worse than this. At this point, I think a call might help. It was Saturday night at 11 o'clock at night, and I still was like, no, you don't do, this is one of my rules in life in general, not even heartbreak. You don't do anything after it's dark. Okay. Because I don't trust my brain after it's dark. So I was like, I said to myself, like, if you, and this was after literally like 3-4 weeks of me wanting to, I was like, if you still want to call him tomorrow, you can, but you call him when it's light. And so, like, I called him on a Sunday at like 3 o'clock, and it was the thing that helped me break through. But by that point, we'd had no contact for 6 months.
Yeah.
And we've still had no contact
That's
since.
good.
It was one phone call and that was it.
That's it.
And I started that phone call saying, I don't want to do this phone call if this is going to make this more painful for you. I have hesitated on doing this phone call because I actually don't think it's fair to either of us. But if you have any hope that we're going to get back together and this is going to fuel your hope, then I need to hang up now.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, this would help me too. And we had a conversation, and there were a few things that I needed to address. Also, because there were a few things that had happened like in the media that I hadn't spoken to him about since. And we had that conversation, and it ended up being my turning point. Like, it just got easier after that. I was like, and I think that's where I had an intuition that I needed it, but I also had like these rules that I had to keep me safe. And it was me battling with that. But like, ultimately, if you decide to break that no contact, it has to be from a logical, rational decision rather than an impulsive from your feelings.
Whatever. Yeah. Amazing.
Ooh, this is a great chat.
Wait, sorry. One question, because we are avid don't come to me as a woman people.
Oh, yes. Oh,
what does that mean?
That is the question.
So coming to you as a woman means that like, hey babe, what the girl DM'd you? Like, hey, is your partner this? So we're like, don't come to me as a woman. Like, leave me the fuck alone.
There's a great debate online.
But so there's a consistent debate of that.
Wait, you mean you wouldn't want to know?
Yeah, do you think it's the right thing to do?
Wait, what? Wait,
if someone had information on my man.
You guys kept the secret.
Yeah.
We're going to need
we want you to talk first. So in your situation, of course I'd want to know, but...
Wait, can I just clarify? If a man was cheating, if the man in your relationship was cheating on you, you would not want to know?
No, I want to know, but I don't want to know from the girl.
But okay, what if you
because
couldn't
more
know
often
from
than
him?
not, maybe because you had a girl you've advised before, more often than not, it's not because... I think maybe
we weren't friends.
It's how I'm approached. Because more often than not, girls try to make it look like it's because I'm looking out for you.
But then they're still fucking him after.
Then there's like...
So you're not really looking out for me that much, are you, sis?
No, but I think two things can be true. They're doing it for negative reasons, but I still think you should know.
Yeah.
So detach it from that
But
person.
sometimes negative reasons overwhelm that I should know. Because you dumb bitch. I was having a good Monday night. I'd just been engaged. Me and my fiance are watching Grey's Anatomy or whatever you're watching. And now you come and DM me within a perfect afternoon. And now I have to make decisions I didn't know that I wanted to make.
Okay, but it's a fantasy.
Why can't I live in fantasy?
Yes, but in that, because it's not as good as reality. It genuinely isn't. He lived in fantasy for 3 years. Like he's still living in fantasy. He's deluding himself. The delusion of a relationship is so much, it's not as good as the real thing. Like, I would always want to know. Like, you don't want the fantasy of a healthy relationship.
You want an actual
like, I want
a
healthy relationship. And until you end it, you are not liberating yourself to the potential of better. And this is the thing, like, when you're going through heartbreak and you're like, he's the one. He was like, he wasn't. But if you keep telling yourself that, you actually are making no space for someone new to enter. Like, you don't want the fantasy. Detach it from the ego of being told by another person, because that is the ego.
That's what it is.
That's what's driving
us
right now.
What it is. That's exactly what it is.
It's ego.
Yeah,
and like,
you're right,
actually detach it from her. You don't need a relationship with her. I chose to get on a phone call with her for an hour because I no longer trusted the words that came out of his mouth. She sent me a screen recording of every single text they sent, and that was so, like, there was no lies either way. I just needed, like,
my eyes would be filling up with tears as I read those messages. That would have been hell.
You know the glaze that
the glaze of tears that goes over your eyes. Horrible.
It's an actual glaze.
Honestly, I didn't really know who sent those messages. As in, like, I didn't know.
You couldn't even recognize him.
I didn't recognize him. Like, I was like, who is this man? Like, but it at that time, I prioritized anything that was truth. And I was like, I believed the words that were coming out of her mouth. And I didn't. So, for example, one of the things she told me was he messaged me in January, but I was in a relationship. And I would have never known that from him. He never mentioned it. And
they always leave out the juicy details.
Well, this is the thing. Like, to him, it like, why does any of this matter? Like, why do the details matter? The details do matter.
Yeah,
you would have started the affair in January. That's why the details fucking matter.
Some of the things he texted in that, like, genuinely are like, anytime. I think this is why it was so closed door for me. Like, there are some texts in that where I was like, whoa, who is that man?
Okay,
like,
oh my God.
And it's just, you don't, promise you don't want to stay in a fantasy. Like, it's not, not real. And like, I think the ego of like, I think especially when it's like high profile celebrities as well, like, yes, would I have felt done dirty if that woman then sold a story and was like, I'm the other woman, like blah, 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 or continued a relationship with him because she hadn't, like, if it was an ongoing thing. again, all of this is ego. The stuff that like a lot of women cause themselves more pain is like, well, was she more beautiful than me? Like, what did she look like in comparison to me? So many people have been like, how have you not felt more insecure about what you look like? Because I was like, because I'm goddamn beautiful. What do you not understand
and
about
that's got
that?
nothing to do with it.
I don't understand. Like, he thought I was beautiful the day he met me. I have not changed in how I look.
Yeah.
And like, it's not a competition between me and her. Like, it is literally like, I just don't think it's why people cheat. Like, they're not looking for a more beautiful woman.
It's
like,
very rarely about that.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, everything you said is spot on.
But still, never in your damn life come to me. leave me alone. No, you're absolutely right. It is a detachment from the ego.
Would you rather
told
them
me.
trickle it to a friend who then tells
I'd just
you?
rather the man never cheated.
Yeah, please.
I was never
scenario,
put in this
but-
situation. I'd rather you were honest and great.
Let me find out on my own. Of
Can
course.
I tell you though, like before this moment, I used to joke that infidelity was the most boring subject to me. So like when you're a life coach, you kind of deal with all the subjects. But my favorite psychologist is S. Perel, and her specialization is infidelity. And like when I got her book, I was like, oh, this is a great book. I just find it so boring because like I hate the topic of infidelity. Like I've never been cheated on, like never cheated, really couldn't care less.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
oh.
You know when you're like, it could never be me, and the life is like, here you are.
yeah.
It is
The
now
thing
you.
is, I never thought I couldn't be cheated on. I actually just, as a psychology topic, just found it boring. Because I think this is why I'm so done and dusted with it. Because I was like, I think I processed more of a breakup than the infidelity. I was like, the infidelity is on you, you deal with it. Like, who cares? I only have to fix the infidelity part if I'm staying.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I'm going through a breakup. That's all the part that really
Yeah, so the
affects
reason why
me.
we're broken up doesn't actually matter is that I'm going through
I
this
mean, the
breakup.
infidelity means it's a proper closed door, like much more so than me just deciding we're not compatible maybe, but like, that's the only piece of it that really impacts me.
I've got a friend like that as well, Gina. She hates people cheating, and she hates how much it shows up on television. She's like, it's made
it's normalised.
so normal. Like it irks her so
Definitely
much. She was
normalised.
like, it's made to seem like it's just a part of a relationship. Like it's gonna
Everyone's
happen.
gonna go through it
It's
at
almost
some point,
inevitable.
yeah.
And when you even listen to like older couples talk, they're like, yeah, this happened, but you know, it's made us stronger. It's like is this the thing that's just meant to happen?
So after my life coach, the first person I spoke to, my sister, and the first thing she said is like, she's 12 years older than me. So the first thing she said is, I have a number of friends who've survived infidelity. You can too.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, she was like, you can't stay. And I was like, she like more and more came out, and I was like, don't worry, I knew this hours ago, but but I had made a promise to myself that day of like, no big decisions today. And so I made it at 4:00 in the morning the next morning.
Fair. Jill, thank you so much.
Michelle, that was amazing.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like we've learned a lot. I hope you listeners have learned a lot. I know it was a love edition, but it was also the lessons edition.
Exactly.
Sometimes
love and lessons.
the lesson is in the love is in the lessons,
And love
So,
is worth
you know.
it. Like to end it on a positive note,
Yeah.
like love is worth it. I believe in love. I'm having a great time dating. I'm really enjoying myself.
And also, you're amongst people who massively believe in love. I'm not like a jaded person who thinks it's not like outside of the very simple terms of love, I think it's one of the greatest things. I think it's the closest thing we have to magic. So I thoroughly believe in it. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. You're
Where can people
amazing.
find you? Where can people buy your books? What books are out? Tell us all the things.
So I'm Michelle Elman on Instagram and TikTok. My books are The Selfish Romantic for Dating, The Joy of Being Selfish for Boundaries, Am I Ugly for Body Image. And I have a new book called Bad Friend for Friendship Breakups.
You cover all areas.
And I have
Literally all areas.
yeah, all my favorite. And my podcast is called In All Honesty.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
You have to come back and do your receipts with us as well.
Yes.
And help people out with
I would
their
love
dilemmas.
that.
So we get some
Yes.
pretty juicy dilemmas.
Okay, cool. We'll definitely do
Yeah,
that. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Love Day. I've been your girl, 22.
Just call me Audrey.
And
Hi, I'm Michelle. Bye, I'm Michelle.
Bye.